During a video call at my daughter's 6th birthday party, my father, stationed in Kuwait, asked what she bought with the $500 he sends us every month. My husband dropped his coffee. My dad had been sending that money for 2 years, $12,000, to my husband's secret bank account. While I was skipping meals to feed our kids, he was at the casino. The moment my world shattered didn't come with a bang, but with a crackle of distorted audio from a video call. It was my daughter Julie's 6th birthday party. The backyard was filled with the shrieks and laughter of a dozen small children, a chaotic symphony of pure joy. I stood in the kitchen, a cheap, homemade cake on the counter, holding my phone up so my dad could see the festivities. He was video calling from his military base in Kuwait, a grainy, pixelated image of a man 7,000 miles away, trying to be present for his granddaughter's special day. He was smiling, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he watched Julie chase her friends around a sprinkler. Then, he asked the question that would detonate our lives. "So," he said, his voice tinny through the phone's speaker, "what did the birthday girl pick out with the $500 I sent?" I froze. The phone felt heavy and slick in my hand. Behind me, I heard a sharp clatter. My husband, Michael, had nearly dropped his coffee mug, his eyes wide with a look of pure, unadulterated panic. I forced a laugh, a shaky, uncertain sound. "What $500, Dad? I think you might be mixed up." His face on the screen, which had been beaming with grandfatherly pride, immediately turned concerned. "The birthday money, sweetheart," he said, his voice gentle. "I send it every month just like always." The air in the kitchen grew thick and cold. I could feel Michael's terror radiating from across the room. "Dad, you haven't sent anything," I stammered, my own confusion mounting. "We would have told you. I would have thanked you." My dad's expression darkened. "Mixed up? Kayla, I have been sending $500 every single month for the past 2 years. For the kids. For their birthdays, for clothes, for anything you might need." He disappeared from the frame for a moment, the screen showing only the corrugated metal wall of his barracks. He returned holding a thick manila folder. 24 wire transfers, he said, his voice gaining a hard, steely edge. October, November, December. He held up a printed bank statement to the camera, his finger tracing a line. $500. Routing number ending in 4782. My heart stopped. It felt as though an icy hand had reached into my chest and squeezed. That was Michael's account number. His separate account, the one he had told me, was exclusively for his work expenses. "For my grandkids," my dad continued, his voice beginning to break with an emotion I couldn't quite place. Anger, hurt, confusion. "I sent that money so you wouldn't have to struggle while I was stationed over here. So they could have proper birthday parties. So they could have Christmas presents. So you could buy groceries without having to stress." Each word was a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. A slideshow of the past 2 years flashed through my mind with sickening clarity. Julie's birthday party, with its dollar store decorations and the sad, apologetic smile I gave her when I said we'd do something really special next year. The countless nights I'd skipped dinner, pretending I wasn't hungry so the kids could have enough to eat. The ramen noodle adventures that had become a twice-a-week staple in our house. The school field trips they had to miss because I couldn't scrape together the $20 fee. "I'm sleeping in a barracks in Kuwait," my dad said, his voice now a quiet, pained whisper, "sending home half of my contractor's pay so that my daughter and my grandchildren don't have to struggle." I slowly turned to face my husband. He stood frozen, his face a ghostly white, his hands shaking so violently that the coffee mug he was still clutching rattled against its saucer. The spilled coffee pooled around his feet, like a dark, ugly confession. 24 months. The numbers began to click into place in my head, a horrifying, relentless calculation. $500 every single month. The room began to spin.
$12,000.
$12,000, while I was selling my own grandmother's wedding ring to pay for Julie's school supplies. $12,000, while I was driving for DoorDash after the kids were in bed, just to make enough money to cover our groceries. $12,000, while I was telling my children that homemade birthdays were more special and meaningful than store-bought ones. $12,000, while Michael was coming home later and later from overtime, his pupils dilated and his excuses increasingly flimsy. "You've been stealing my father's money," I whispered, the words feeling foreign and monstrous on my tongue. While our children went without. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the sound of Julie's innocent laughter floating in from the backyard. I was going to tell you, Michael finally stammered, his voice weak and reedy. Tell me what? I shouted, my own voice raw with a pain so deep it felt like it was tearing me apart. That you've been collecting $500 a month while I was working 3 jobs to keep us afloat? While I was telling Julie we couldn't even afford a proper birthday cake from the grocery store? My voice dropped to a hiss. Where is it, Michael? Where is the money? I snatched his phone from his hand. Show me. Show me where $12,000 went. His hands trembled as he unlocked the phone and navigated to his banking app. I stared at the screen, at the neat columns of transactions. Deposits from Kuwait. And then the withdrawals. ATM at casino. $200. ATM at casino. $300. Page after page of the same. I have a problem, he whispered, his eyes fixed on the floor. You had $500 of my father's money coming in every single month while I was skipping meals to feed our children, I said, my voice now deadly quiet. You held me while I sobbed, telling you I felt like I was failing our kids. You told me we just needed to budget better. While you were stealing from us. My dad's voice, cold and steady, crackled through the phone's speaker. Michael, did my granddaughter eat ramen noodles for dinner on her birthday while you had my money in your pocket? Michael couldn't bring himself to look at the screen. I am 7,000 miles away, in the middle of a desert. My dad's voice broke. And you let my daughter, you let my grandchildren, think that I had forgotten them. I grabbed Michael's phone again, my fingers scrolling frantically through the transaction history. The dates were a litany of our family struggles. These casino withdrawals, I said, my own voice shaking with a fresh wave of rage. July 15th. That was the day of Julie's first soccer game. August 3rd. Her first dance recital. You weren't stuck in traffic. You weren't at work. You were at a casino, gambling away my father's money, while I sat alone at our child's biggest moments, making excuses for why her daddy couldn't be there. He just stared at the floor, a pathetic, crumbling monument to his own deceit. And then a memory, so painful I had buried it deep, hit me with the force of a sledgehammer. Last Christmas. I had to sit the kids down and tell them that Santa was having a tough year financially. Julie had cried, her small body shaking with sobs. She was convinced she had done something bad, that she was on the naughty list. She came home from school after the break. My voice cracked, the memory a fresh wound. After seeing all the presents the other kids got. And she asked me what she had done wrong. She made a list, Michael. A list of all the ways she was going to be better this year, so that Santa would love her again. The rage was a physical force, a white-hot inferno consuming me from the inside out. You had $500 in December. You had another $500 in November. You had $1,000 of my father's money, while I was wrapping dollar store toys in newspaper. While our perfect, innocent daughter spent an entire year trying to be a better person because you made her believe she wasn't good enough for Christmas presents. Just then, Julie ran back inside, her handmade paper crown, a concoction of paper plates and aluminum foil, sliding down over her eyes. Mommy, can we have cake now? She asked, her voice bright and cheerful. I looked at her sweet, innocent face, and then at the lopsided, homemade cake I had stayed up until 2 a.m. decorating after a long and grueling DoorDash shift. Yes, baby, I said, my voice thick with unshed tears. Go get your friends. When she had skipped back outside, I turned back to Michael, my voice a low, dangerous whisper. $500 a month for 2 years. While your daughter wore shoes with holes in them. While your son couldn't play soccer because we couldn't afford the registration fee. While I skipped lunch every single day just to save $5. My dad's voice cut through the tense silence, sharp as a blade. I'm on the next flight home, he said. Emergency family leave. 24 months of wire fraud, Michael. Michael's face went gray. Kayla, my dad said, his voice softening. Pack the kids' things tonight. You're done struggling alone. I'll be there in 18 hours. I looked at Julie's pathetic, handmade birthday crown, sitting on the counter. She never knew that her grandfather had sent money for a real one, a beautiful, sparkling princess tiara. You didn't just steal the money, Michael, I said quietly, the full scope of his betrayal finally settling in. You stole their relationship with him. Julie thinks her grandpa doesn't care about her. You stole that from her. You stole that from him. In the background of the video call, I could see my dad putting on his uniform jacket. My mom was now visible on another phone, and I heard her say 2 words that sent a chill down my spine. Forensic accountant. 18 hours, my dad repeated. And Michael, you had better not be there when I arrive. He hung up. I turned to face my husband, and the look in his eyes was not one of remorse or shame. It was a cold, hard look that told me he was not going to leave peacefully. My fingers gripped the edge of the granite countertop, my knuckles turning white as he took a step toward me, his jaw clenched, his fists tightening at his sides. The party guests were still laughing in the backyard, oblivious to the fact that our family was imploding. For the first time in our marriage, I was afraid of my husband. Without looking down, I slipped my phone under the counter and typed a quick, 3-word message to my dad. It said, everything. Just then, Julie burst back through the door, asking for juice boxes. I forced my face into a smile that felt like it was made of broken glass. Michael retreated back into the corner as I retrieved the drinks from the refrigerator, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold them. She skipped back outside, a whirlwind of blissful ignorance, completely unaware that her entire world was about to be torn apart. My thumb, moving on its own accord, found my neighbor's number in my contacts. I sent her a quick text. Are you home? I needed a safe place to take the kids, just in case. She replied within seconds, my door is always open for you. A small measure of relief washed over me. Michael was watching me, his eyes narrowed and calculating. He knew what I was doing. As parents began to arrive to pick up their children, I walked each one to the door, my voice a strained, cheerful melody of goodbyes and thank yous. After the last one left, I locked the front door, the click of the deadbolt echoing in the sudden, heavy silence. Michael started talking immediately, a torrent of excuses and promises. You don't understand. I was going to pay it all back, the stress from work. I held up a hand to stop him. I retrieved my phone from under the counter, hit the record button, and placed it on the counter between us, the small red light a blinking, silent witness. I let him talk. He paced the kitchen, a caged animal, his narrative shifting from blaming his job to promising he'd get help, if only I would give him one more chance. When he finally admitted to taking the money, but insisted on calling it borrowing, I felt a wave of nausea so intense I had to grip the counter to steady myself. The kids came inside then, asking about dinner. We're having a special sleepover tonight, I told them, my voice artificially bright. We're all going to camp out in Mommy's room. They cheered, excited by the unexpected adventure. I helped them gather their blankets and stuffed animals, while Michael just watched from the doorway, a ghost in our crumbling home. Once they were settled in my room, engrossed in a movie on my laptop, I locked the bedroom door. I heard Michael's heavy footsteps in the hallway, followed by a sharp, angry knock on the door. The kids are listening, I said through the door, my voice cold. The knocking stopped. I went into the ensuite bathroom, turned on the faucet to muffle the sound, and called the non-emergency police line. I explained the situation, and the calm, professional voice of the operator gave me a report number and promised an officer could do a drive-by if I felt unsafe. A text from my dad came through with his flight details. He would land at 2 p.m. the next day. My mom messaged separately. The forensic accountant was already at work. Knowing they were mobilizing, a coordinated force moving to protect us, made me feel less alone, less trapped. I barely slept. At 3 a.m., I heard Michael in the garage. The door opened and closed twice. His truck idled for 20 minutes before he came back inside. I documented everything in the Notes app on my phone, a meticulous timeline of his every move. At sunrise, while he snored on the couch, surrounded by a small fortress of empty beer bottles, I took photos of him, of the mess, of the man who had stolen not just our money, but our peace, our security, our trust. I got the kids ready for school, their familiar morning routine a fragile island of normalcy in a sea of chaos. After the school bus pulled away, I drove to the bank and opened my own checking account, transferring exactly half of the money from our joint account. Back at the house, I found his separate account statements hidden in his desk. The casino withdrawals went back 3 years. I photographed every single page. As I was leaving, my phone buzzed with fraud alerts. He was at a downtown ATM, draining what was left in our joint account. I froze the account, but he had already taken $400. I went to the school and informed the office that only I was authorized to pick up the kids. Michael's text started that afternoon, a volatile, terrifying cycle of apologies, accusations, and finally, threats. I'll take the kids if you don't stop being so dramatic. I called a legal aid society and got an appointment for the next morning. A lawyer named Lucille Donnelly listened to my story and immediately began preparing the paperwork for an emergency protective order. That night, a text from Michael, trying to bargain. He'd go to rehab if I dropped the legal proceedings. I forwarded it to Lucille. My dad arrived the next afternoon, a dusty, exhausted soldier home from the war, ready to fight a new one for his family. He laid out the bank statements on the kitchen table, a paper trail of Michael's betrayal. When Michael refused to leave, my dad called the police for a civil standby. The officers calmly but firmly suggested he pack a bag. He left, muttering about his rights. That night, I created a timeline on a poster board. On one side, our struggles, the missed field trips, the ramen dinners, the shoes with holes. On the other, his casino withdrawals. The forensic accountant called at 3 a.m. The theft was worse than we thought. $13,000. I filed a police report for theft by deception. I took Julie to the school counselor, who confirmed my worst fears. My daughter had internalized the hardship, believing she was bad, and that's why Santa hadn't come. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal filings and protective measures. I discovered Michael had also taken out $5,000 in payday loans in my name, a clear case of identity theft. I froze my credit, filed more police reports, and spent hours on the phone with fraud departments. A temporary custody order granted me primary custody, with Michael allowed only supervised visitation. But even that, he violated, showing up at Julie's soccer practice, a clear breach of the protective order. The final custody hearing was a blur. The judge, presented with a mountain of evidence, the financial fraud, the identity theft, the repeated violations of the protective order, awarded me full legal and physical custody. Michael was ordered to complete a year-long batterers intervention program and was allowed only 2 hours of supervised visitation per month, contingent on his continued participation in a gambling addiction program. The criminal charges for identity theft are still pending, but for the first time in a long time, my children and I are safe. My dad is back in Kuwait, but he calls every day. The money he sends now goes into a secure trust account that only I can access. We are slowly, painstakingly, rebuilding our lives from the wreckage Michael left behind. We eat pasta 4 nights a week, and money is tighter than ever, but we eat together. And for the first time in a long time, we are at peace.